So, I will just revise some of the stuff which we have learnt in the skull, more like a problem with describing things on a model or on a demo is that you do not know what is what are the labels which you would need to remember and recollect. So, in that context I thought I will describe some of the things, but so the most important stuff which I have discussed is the cranial nerves. So, it is like this: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, because this is relevant even for subsequent discussions. 10, 11, oops. So, I have already told about the actual nomenclature of the nerves. So, what is important is in remembering how they are related to each other and what are their functions. Each cranial nerve is fairly specific for a set of activities, but there is of course overlap, and that is what makes it tricky and important. Spinal segments on the contrary are according to what is called as spinal segments. I will discuss that in greater detail. So, first nerve is optic or olfactory. This is smell. Second nerve is optic. Vision. Third, fourth, sixth are they are oculomotor, trochlear, abducens. So, these are for eye movements. Fifth nerve is both for chewing and sensations. Sorry, I have to write the name here. Trigeminal. And what this thing does is facial sensation chewing. Seventh nerve is facial muscles, facial nerve, facial muscles and taste. Eighth nerve is hearing. There are two components of this. So, vestibulocochlear nerve. Two functions: hearing, balance. Ninth, 10th, 11th. Ninth is Pharyngeal, EAL. 10th is vagus, basically named as it is a wanderer, a long nerve. It goes all the way from the head up to the heart. 11th is accessory. Sorry, yeah, that's about that. And the 12th is hypoglossal. These are for speech, swallowing, yeah. Hypoglossal is for the tongue. So, this is just a list of the cranial nerves, their function. On the skull I had shown you the organization of these nerves as they exit from the skull, which also forms the basis of their naming, why we name from 1 to 12. And the nerves are important because, as I told you, they subserve important functions, very specific functions, unlike spinal nerves, in which the architecture is fairly common. So, C1 up to C1 up to say S5 is similar in pattern. There are some differences between some levels, but overall they have the same thing. So, they have got an anterior root, posterior root, which forms one single spinal nerve, and that spinal nerve gives branches to different parts of the body, and that continues monotonously across. But if you look at the cranial nerves which exit from the skull, we notice that these are very specific nerves which subserve very specific tasks. Some of the nerves are very highly specific. So, for example, optic nerve is only for vision, olfaction is only for smell, they do not do anything else. But vestibulocochlear, they are grouped together. Vestibule and cochlear, if you look at it function wise, balance and hearing do not seem to have any kind of similarity, but somehow the apparatus for detecting, the sensory apparatus for detecting both are very closely connected to each other with having common physical channels, and the nerves which go which supply in the sense they get the information back into the brain about hearing and balance, come out through same anatomical foramen. So, that is the connection. Some general purpose nerves, such as say for example facial nerve, is for all the muscles in the face, with some exceptions, and trigeminal nerve for all the sensations of the face. So, these are the kind of mixes which happening. 9, 10th and 11 also subserves taste, which I have not mentioned. So, so if you look at function wise, we can see that some parts of the apparatus are very highly evolved. So, for example, eye movements is very highly evolved. Taste has 2 places, then balance is 1. The speech is something which is very interesting, because speech has a lot of places where this facial, I think I should write it over here, facial, the lower cranial nerves, hypoglossal. So, there is a large number. So, there are large number of muscles, large number of nerves which subserve this function. So, damages to any one of this is responsible for kinds of diseases, which is why it is difficult to why it forms a important medical topic. But for this audience also, I would like you to have an understanding of that there exist cranial nerves. These cranial nerves have specific functions, they are very different from spinal nerves, and what each the mapping is not very uniform. So, so there are that is another thing which I can highlight here is this is sensory, motor, sensory plus motor, motor, sensory, sensory plus motor, sensory plus motor, sensory plus motor, and motor. So, so that is the so sensory is only afferent in the sense something coming from the periphery into the center, and efferent is something coming from the from going out from the periphery to the going out from the brain to the periphery. So, that is the afferent and efferent story. Now, before proceeding with the brain anatomy, there was something else which I had to. So far I have been discussing anatomy without I spoke about bounds as to how much I have to describe, but one thing which I have not described is the manifold in which the descriptions are made. Now, that is important because as I expressed earlier, all of anatomy is relational anatomy. So, you need to relate something in some context, and fortunately or unfortunately we do not use navigational methodology like starboard or whatever other things. So, in medical terminology, it is important to note that there is something called as an anatomical position. So, this is standard. By convention we agree what is an anatomical position, which is basically a person standing straight with the hands like this. So, standing straight with the hands like this is the standard anatomical position, and it is with this frame of reference, which is why I use the term manifold instead of a coordinate system. We do not use coordinates. So, manifold is a more appropriate term for the descriptions which we follow. So, in that context, if we have a person standing straight, so looking down from above, and if this is the head, this is sorry, I think I should have drawn the head a little more oblique. So, this would be anterior, anterior is in front, posterior behind. The next set of relations are interesting because it is called medial and lateral. So, lateral means towards outside, medial means towards inside. So, that is something which is important, and we can have combinations anteromedial, posterolateral and things like that. Now, it should be remembered that we are bilaterally symmetric, and the reference is to both sides. So, even this is medial and this is lateral. So, coordinate systems, this particular coordinate system is the standard. Now, this can be extended it to very small areas. Say for example, in the skull, when we say that the cochlea is anteromedial to the semicircular apparatus, so or to the anteromedial to the internal acoustic meatus. So, that is a anatomical method of saying, and that is by that we can say. Now, there is the two more things. One is towards the head it becomes superior, that would be, I think the nomenclature would be this one, and towards the opposite direction it is inferior. So, that describes the complete set of anatomical the basis of anatomical nomenclature. So, you have medial, lateral, anterior, posterior, superior, inferior. There is also this terminology of superficial and deep. So, superficial is something towards the surface and deep is obviously deep. So, I have used these terms earlier, but I had to say this particularly because if we are going to serious anatomy, there may be places where I would tell these terms without thinking too much, and you may wonder as to what these things actually mean. So, that is the point of explanation. So, arteries and veins we will be dealing later. CSF I have described. The ventricular anatomy is something which I would again be dealing with later. What we now proceed is to the actual surface architecture of the brain. So, surface architecture of the brain is something surface in the sense gross anatomy. I would not say surface, because I would even be dealing with some of the deep things in the cerebrum especially, and let us see how we can make we can understand this particular topic. I will stop at this.